Okay, in this video, I'm going to ramble on about what the Divine Feminine / Empress path is about. And to be clear, there typically is one partner in a relationship or friendship or situationship that will be more so embodying the Empress energy, the Divine Feminine energy, than the masculine. But in a true divine partnership, both partners learn to take on both energies. Because without that, there's not an ability to have a genuine empathy and understanding for both sides, and the necessity for both sides. And also, until you learn to embody both sides, you don't really have that self-sustaining self-worth. And like, once you realize you can provide yourself and you can connect with your inner being and spirit and get divine feminine and divine masculine energy whenever you need it, then you are still in karmic energy. But for the purposes of this, I'm going to refer to mostly the actual female or person who plays out the typical female role in the relationship. Just keep in mind, though, because I'm sure there are many folks who are more typically the masculine, who will find themselves in Empress, feminine energy and trying to figure out what the heck is going on. So this video can also apply to that. Now, the Divine Feminine, the Empress path, is about the mother. It's about learning, like we all go, men and women and non-binaries, we all go through a process of, first we learn our mothers, the good, the bad, the light, the shadow, the ugly, beautiful. And we get passed on to us the ancestral traumas passed on to her, and we get her insecurities and traumas and pain body passed on to us. Projected onto us is more what it is, and it's usually not intentional. But these create a mother wound. And once that mother wound is, I'm going to say, secure within us, we seek to leave the nest, and we typically find ourselves in a phase of life which can last for any given amount of time. It really depends on when you hit an enlightened period, where you don't want to be like your mother's, your mother. Like, I for a very long time had a big fear of becoming my mother, who at the time I saw as being stuck in a very codependent relationship with my father, where she would not speak up about what she really wanted. She might tell me or another person what she wanted, but not tell him. And then she would say that she told him, but if, like, anybody observing from the outside could tell that either she didn't actually say it or she said it in an indirect way. She was still very much in karmic energy. And what I saw as a child and growing up was this very unhappy relationship where it was like, well, we're staying together for the kids, or well, I won't find anybody better anyways, or why try, or like a bunch of different excuses that they both did. And I didn't ever want to end up in a relationship like that. But what I took on the projections of my mother in thinking that it was about not having a partner who reciprocated. And I, for a long time, missed the lesson that it wasn't about the partner that she was with. It was about learning self-sustaining self-worth. Because when you are in a karmic energy as a feminine and you are trying to get your satisfaction, your joy from an external source, especially a partner, then all you really get is contrast and conflict and confirmation bias that you're not being listened to, or that if you try to do something fun, they won't like it, or, like the lesson is not in not being with somebody that, like, my fear for a long time, my mother wound, was about ending up with somebody that I wasn't satisfied with, under the assumption that I would become codependent like she was, and that I would continue trying to make things work with a partner who was not understanding, who did not seem to have the empathy or motivation to give back what I felt like I was giving, because, in observation of my mother, it was very much like she would give and give and give and give, make dinners and clean the house and take care of me and do things like that. I'm going to roll up these windows because the neighbor's dog has decided that he's going to go off because we have an Amazon driver pulling up to drop things off. Thank you to all the Amazon drivers still working, by the way. Now, in my karmic role with myself, I assumed that it was that I needed to be careful about not getting trapped in a relationship I'd be unhappy in for 40 odd years, when the real lesson was I needed to work on learning to provide for myself the things that I thought needed to come from external sources. And as I started to learn that and started to allow myself to heal my mother wounds, which is the best way to start with that is with your chakras. Your root chakras call your soul pieces back to you. Soul retrieval. But what I started to learn was that a lot of it is in self-forgiveness. And because a lot of times the things that we are mad at other people for, that we talk about, like, well, they have to apologize first, I'm not going to do that first, or they have to change first, I'm not going to change. Most of that is our own bullshit in learning to forgive ourselves for our parts and things, like, in any case, we'll go more on about that another time, but that's the kind of things, like, as in the Empress Divine Feminine path that you start to look at, is where, you started out kind of being a part of your mother, not kind of, like, you start out in the womb, in the stomach, even if you're adopted, you still started somewhere in that, in somebody's belly. You started as a collection of DNA from mother and father, and then you become part of the mother. You are born from the mother. And then as you're a child, you are a part of the mother. That's part of why it hurts so much, like when our mothers don't want to play with us, or see us as, like, they treat us like we're failures, or they're constantly hovering and acting like we need them to do every little thing. They're not allowing some natural consequences to flow in, or they're not appreciative of our friends or partnerships and things like that. Like, it hurts because we don't even realize at a young age that we still feel like a part of our mothers. And we go through the separation phase from our mothers, and we try to avoid being anything like them, whether it's conscious or not. Like, if you look at your life and you look, especially when you're getting into the divine feminine energy, the Empress energy, meaning you're becoming conscious of these things and you choose to heal these things, you start to recognize that you've been doing that. But before then, you often don't. So don't beat up on yourself for anything that you've done in what I call reverse Empress energy, or karmic energy. And then, once you really get it, and you, or even before you get it, you just, you start wanting to be healed. You want better relationships. You want to have the healthy relationships that you feel like your mother did not have. Then you start to heal those mother wounds. You start to think about the real lessons in it. And then you start to embody the true Empress energy, which is when you stop seeking mother in others and you start embodying mother in yourself. And is not mother is not somebody who coddles. Mother is not somebody who does everything for you or is continually, well, I'm going to say she is always forgiving, but she, okay, for example, with our kids, right? We're going to, when they're little, we're going to walk them across the street by holding their hands, and we're going to teach them to look both ways across the street because we want them to be capable of doing that on their own, both in an emergency at a young age and as they get older. And we want them to teach that to their kids. And we teach them to remember that not all drivers are paying attention, so they need to pay attention, right? Now, once we get across the street, oftentimes, if we're in a karmic energy, we will try to make them stay right next to us until we get right where we feel comfortable letting them go, and then let them go. Whereas really, like, mother energy is that trusting, faithful energy, knowing that once you get across the street, you can see where the playground is. They're excited. You let them enjoy that childhood energy. You let them go. If they fall, you pick them up. If they run too fast and run out of breath, you help them get caught up, but you have faith that everything's going to be okay, and you let them make mistakes. You let them go do that. And then when you get back and you're ready to cross the street again, or you're ready to cross the parking lot, you hold their hand enough times until you both feel comfortable that they'll stay next to you. And then if they don't want to hold your hand anymore, you observe that, and you allow that. And if you find yourself feeling like you still need to hold their hand, then you start looking at that within yourself. Now, if they, okay, let's say in another situation, let's use the same one. Let's say you're going to cross the street and you know that your child has not yet really learned to look both ways, and they're tired and they're moody and they're cranky and they're not wanting to hold your hand, and you're okay with that for the most part, but it's busy. And so you do need them to do that. Now, unhealthy mothering energy would either be you yell at them or you just let them do it and go, whatever, just next to next to me. And like, the healthy mother energy would be like, you know what? I can understand that you're feeling a little bit rebellious right now. So I'm going to give you a couple options. Either you can hold my hand right now and we'll cross the street and you can have that rest of that energy once we get across there. Or we can stay here on this side of the street where there's no park and no fun until you feel better. And then you can hold my hand and we'll go across the street. Or maybe you can put your hand on my shirt. You can hold on to my shirt. You find a middle ground. You find a middle ground, but you don't allow them to run the show either. And yet you also don't steal their thunder, their independence, their desire for contrast and change. You find a win-win, a healthy middle ground. And in the Empress energy, in the Divine Feminine energy, when you start to embody mother, which is when you embody the mother that you wanted and needed, not necessarily the mother that you had, you start to do that with most of your relationships. And you can recognize when you still have some things to heal in that, like if you're in a place of being like, well, I ain't nobody's mother, I ain't cleaning up after you, I'm not going to be ultimately forgiving of you. You're still in karmic energy. If you feel like being mothering, being nurturing, not being, not coddling, but being nurturing, especially to your divine masculine, is an icky thing, then you still have some stuff to work out. And likewise, if you're going the other way and you feel like you constantly need to tell them how to fix things, how to do things better, how to avoid people, how to put their shoes on, things like that, you're also still got some stuff to work out. But when you become comfortable with flowing in love of unconditioned, knowing that you see them as their inner being, that you are there for them even when they are being not well behaved, that you understand, and that you start to recognize that you reflect them. And the divine feminine path is one of increased empathy and intuition. And so you start to really feel your partner's feelings. And typically, the partner who is predominantly the feminine, the Empress, will go through this first. And usually it happens through a situation that requires us to work on our self-worth, to choose who we want to be. It could be a huge separation, a huge breakup. It could be going, through serial partners until you're like, oh my gosh, why am I getting all these people who are doing these same things to me? It's typically for someone who's aware enough and not and ready to be done with karmic cycles, at least unconscious karmic cycles, will be in a situation spirit will help put us in a situation where we are alone. And we start to learn that alone is not that bad. And we start to look in the mirror. And as we heal within ourselves that which we've been avoiding, we stop choosing the same choices that we did before. And then we get, it's funny because spirit will test us. And it's funny, it's not a test of right or wrong. It's a test of who are you now and what do you want? Like, you might be faced with, if in the past, when you were lonely or you were feeling unchosen or unworthy, did you jump into finding a new partner? Did you jump into relationships before you were ready? Did you jump into relationships to distract yourself from being with somebody that you really wanted to be with? Did you lie and hide your feelings because you were afraid of pushing people away? Did you sink yourself into your kids or your work and not make time for anybody else? Did you hole up and get depressed and not eat right or sleep right? Or get into drinking or drugs, things like that, like, what were your old patterns? And then, you'll be faced with those to work out that karma, because those are karmics too. And as each one comes about, and you can look at it, like, for me, with a recent big, it was like separation break. Yeah. The choice was, do I run back into my old habits of trying to distract myself with people and sex and money and things like that? Or do I stop and work on myself? Do I focus on myself for once, which I have not been doing because I have been playing out the ancestral traumas, the mother wound traumas, the codependencies. And I could go back into that. There isn't a right or wrong in it, but who do I want to be, And for me, I want to be somebody who is self-sustaining. I want to be somebody who is unconditionally loving. I want to be somebody who has relationships because they are fun and bold and beautiful, and they provide a wonderful sort of playful contrast that adds value to my life. I don't want to continue. In fact, I'm not going to continue being the kind of person who seeks relationships because I need distraction or because I'm feeling insecure or I need some validation or things like that. Like, I am choosing in each moment, even when I sometimes, go back and forth into, okay, there are times on the divine feminine path where you will want to avoid doing something like dating or opening yourself up to intimacy with others, where you're like, no, I don't want to do that. You know, whether you already know your divine masculine and you're like, no, I want to be faithful and loyal to them, or whether you're on your own and you're just like, I don't want to deal with relationships anymore, they're all drama, you know, whatever it is, like, unless you are choosing to be single because you feel good like that, then the universe will keep providing situations where you have to keep asking yourself that stuff. You know, like, what is wrong with being open to the possibilities? Do you not feel deserving of it? You know, or is it because you're enjoying your alone time? Or, you know, do you have a balance between alone time? Do you have enough friendships going on? Do you have enough interaction going on? You know, because it's about achieving a balance in there. And as you start to work on that, you start to become more, I'm going to say, clairsentient. You can start to feel your partner, whether you've met them already or not. You can start to feel your divine masculine. And usually at this point, they can feel you, but they are not conscious of it yet. And instead, it comes out in various synchronicities with whomever they're playing out karmic roles with. I'll get more into divine masculine stuff in the next video. But as divine feminine and empress energy, you start to become extremely sensitive to your partner's energies. And part of that is actually to help you learn to focus on yourself, because oftentimes, especially for feminines, we feel like it's part of the codependency thing that, like, if they're in trouble or they're not happy or they're, you know, there's something that could help them be happier, we want to help. We want to feel that specialness of being like, here, I helped you. You know, I get to be a part of this. Or, oh no, you're in trouble, I need to protect you. Or, you know, here, put on your raincoat, it'll help you stay warm outside. And then we end up actually pushing them away, because for masculine energy, that feels very emasculating. Like, yes, everybody wants a feminine who is helpful and compassionate and understanding, but nobody wants a feminine who is requiring to be able to help, who doesn't, and who isn't intuiting the right moments to step in and help, and the right moments to just get the hell out of the way and let that masculine do what masculines do. And we have to learn that. Like, even when we're feeling called and pulled by our masculines, and we feel like when we feel like there's a threat to the relationship, or we feel like we need to reconnect it, we can feel it slipping away, or we can feel ourselves being called to different choices and different things to do. We have to learn to focus on ourselves, and we have to learn to have faith and divine timing. And the longer we fight that, the longer we fight working on ourselves, the more we delay union or reunion. And the more we play out more karmic energies, the more we are seen even by our masculines and others as karmics. And because the divine feminine path is very much wrapped up in learning to embrace intuition, it's also a time when you need to learn to let go of control. Now, both emperors and empresses, we usually start out with lots of control issues, and it's usually surrounded around trying not to get hurt in the ways we were in the past, and trying to do what we think that society/family needs to see to feel like we're a successful person. Divine, both roles, but divine feminine, when you get into that energy, is about learning to release that control, to trust in the universe, to trust in yourself. Like, you know what you want to manifest. If what you want to manifest is a healthy relationship, you only had to ask for it and then allow it to happen. We tend to get wrapped up in this, if it's broken, we have to fix it. 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 No, we don't. We have to get out of our own way and allow it to fix itself. Allow it to fall down, and then look at the pieces that are left over and decide which pieces we want to build something new with. Because if you're still in an energy of, I have to fix this, I have to do more, you are not feeling worthy. And I'll do some more videos about building self-worth, but that is typically the Empress energy, the Divine Feminine lesson. That's how you start to transmute the mother wounds into mother power, for lack of a better way to put it. And you start to get comfortable. You know, you start to learn to be comfortable with things you weren't comfortable with before. If you have been very possessive, you learn to be comfortable. You learn to be less territorial. You learn to become that feminine who's like, I know how this story ends. I know who they're coming home with at night. I know how things work out. I ain't got nothing to worry about. And, you know, you learn the difference between like a conceited entitlement and just a recognition of how awesome you are. Like you get to a space where you can say that without feeling like a jerk. Because you are worthy and you choose yourself, and then you recognize there's no competition. You know, if you are somebody who is genuinely compassionate and genuinely unconditionally loving of yourself and of your family, your masculine, of all people, even karmics, there's no reason why you couldn't have multiple divine partners lining up for you if you wanted them to. And the nice thing is when you start to transmute and get into the divine feminine energy, recognize that even, like, you could manifest that, but you don't need it. You don't need that attention. And then you start getting it and you start transmuting it even, and just, you know, relaxing into it. And then you switch over and the universe throws you some switch ups and you learn to sit into the divine emperor energy, the divine masculine energy, so that you can really understand that side of it. Because divine feminine energy is really becoming understanding of how others experience things and how important it is to recognize that another person's experience of something, whether it coincides with yours or not, is still valuable, it's still worthy, and it still needs to be recognized just as you want yours recognized. Now I'm getting up to the 30-minute mark, so I think what I'm going to do is have a couple of ending thoughts, and then if anybody would like to have any further information about this specific video, because I will do more that'll break down things a little bit more, please feel free to message me or go ahead and try to comment if you'd like. In any case, the divine feminine path, as final thoughts on it, is it's healing your mother wounds. It's becoming the mother that you wanted and needed, and mothering yourself, learning to give yourself the unconditional love that you seek from others. Because once you can give that to yourself consistently, you can see it and receive it from others and give it to others. And you can also recognize the difference between those that are healed enough to receive and appreciate it, and those who are still in a karmic path and needing to diverge on their paths for a little while to learn, you know, or permanently, whatever the choices that you make, to learn those lessons. Because once you sit in Empress energy and divine feminine energy, you recognize that they are capable of learning those lessons. They don't need you to rescue them or hold things up for them so that the ship doesn't sink. You recognize that they can do it, and you can do it, and that you are worthy of having ease. You don't need to be rescuer. You don't need to be hero. You don't need to be the damsel in distress. You can do it, and they can do it. And then you take that leap of faith and you release it. And then you also release a lot of the ancestral traumas, the mother wounds that you've been working on. And then you start to notice who reflects you. Friends, family, partners, especially your divine partner, will start to reflect you. It may not be instantly, but it'll be within a fairly smooth timeline if you've really done your healing. If you really start to recognize that any karmics in your path, any triggering from said partners and other people is for you to reflect on and heal within you. If you really, really do that, then you see who's meant for you, who is in connection with you, who is in alignment with you, who is not super ahead or super behind, but right there with you. And that's where the fun begins. Alright, y'all, stay tuned for the next video. I'm going to wait for this one to upload because I only have so much room in my phone, and we'll talk about the Divine Masculine role.